Betrayal cuts deeper than any knife. It doesn't just wound, it festers, poisoning your mind and soul until there's nothing left but rage and despair. That's what happened to me when I found out my wife Claire was cheating on me. We had been married for 10 years, and I thought we were happy. But I was wrong, dead wrong. It started with small things, late nights at work, secret phone calls, sudden changes in her behavior. At first I tried to ignore it, to convince myself that I was just being paranoid. But the truth was impossible to ignore. One night I followed her. I watched as she met him, a man I didn't recognize, at a hotel downtown. I sat in my car, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white as they walked inside together. That night I confronted her. I expected denial, excuses, maybe even tears. But instead she admitted it. Just like that. No remorse, no guilt. Just cold, brutal honesty. "I'm not happy," she said. "I haven't been happy for a long time." Her words shattered me. I had given her everything. My love, my loyalty, my life. And it wasn't enough. She had thrown it all away for some stranger, some fleeting moment of pleasure. I didn't know what to do. I was lost, drowning in a sea of anger and pain. But then, as the days turned into weeks, the pain hardened into something else, something dark and dangerous. I couldn't get over it. I couldn't move on. And so, I made a decision. I decided to kill her. I'm not a violent man. I've never even been in a fight. But the betrayal had changed me. It had awakened something inside me, something primal and savage. I wanted Claire to suffer, to feel the same pain she had inflicted on me. But I didn't want it to be quick. I wanted it to be slow, deliberate, and agonizing. I started by researching. I read books, watched documentaries, and scoured the internet for information on how to commit the perfect murder. I knew I had to be careful. One mistake, and I would spend the rest of my life in prison. But I was willing to take that risk. For Claire, it was worth it. I decided to make it look like an accident. A fall down the stairs, a gas leak, a car crash. Something that wouldn't raise suspicion. But as I thought about it more, I realized that wasn't enough. I didn't just want her to die. I wanted her to know it was me. I wanted her to feel the same fear, the same helplessness that I had felt when I found out about her affair. So I changed my plan. I would make it personal. I would make her suffer. I started small. I wanted to plant the seeds of fear, to make her question her sanity. I began by moving things around the house. Her favorite mug, her hairbrush, her wedding ring. At first she didn't notice, but then one night she confronted me. "Have you been moving my things?" she asked, her voice tinged with irritation. I feigned ignorance. "What are you talking about?" She frowned, but didn't press the issue. I could see the doubt in her eyes, the flicker of unease. It was working. Next, I started leaving notes, small, cryptic messages that I would slip into her purse or leave on her pillow. "I know what you did," one read. "You can't hide from me," said another. At first, she dismissed them as pranks, but as the days went by, the notes became more frequent, more menacing. "You're going to pay for what you did," one warned. "I'm watching you," said another. I could see the fear growing in her eyes. She started locking the doors at night, checking the windows, looking over her shoulder when she thought no one was watching. She was unraveling, and I was the one pulling the strings. I decided to escalate. I wanted to make her feel unsafe, even in her own home. One night while she was asleep, I crept into her room and stood over her bed, watching her. She looked so peaceful, so innocent. But I knew better. She was a liar, a cheat, and she deserved to suffer. I reached out and gently touched her face. She stirred, her eyes fluttering open. For a moment, she just stared at me, confused. And then she screamed. I stepped back, pretending to be startled. "Claire, what's wrong?" She sat up, her chest heaving. "What are you doing in here?" "I heard a noise," I lied. I thought something was wrong. She didn't believe me. I could see the fear in her eyes, the realization that she wasn't safe, even in her own home. The next day, I decided to take things further. I wanted to make her feel like she was losing her mind. I started gaslighting her, changing small details about her day, denying conversations we had had, rearranging the furniture when she wasn't looking. "Didn't you say you were going to the store today?" I asked one afternoon. She frowned. "No, I didn't." "Are you sure? I could have sworn you mentioned it this morning." She shook her head, but I could see the doubt creeping in. She was starting to question her own memory, her own sanity. By now, Claire was a wreck. She was paranoid, jumpy, and constantly on edge. She had stopped going out, stopped seeing her friends, stopped living. She was a prisoner in her own home, and I was her jailer. But it wasn't enough. I wanted her to know it was me. I wanted her to feel the same pain, the same betrayal that I had felt. One night I confronted her. I told her everything about the notes, the gaslighting, the fear. I watched as the realization dawned on her, as the fear turned to horror. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Because you deserve it," I said. "You destroyed me, and now I'm going to destroy you." What happened next is a blur. I don't remember all the details, just the rage, the violence, the sound of her screams. When it was over, she was gone, and I was left standing in the blood-soaked living room, my hands shaking. I thought revenge would make me feel better, but it didn't. Instead, I felt empty, hollow. The anger that had driven me was gone, replaced by a gnawing sense of guilt and despair. I left the house that night, but I knew I couldn't escape what I had done. The police would come for me eventually, and when they did, I would have to face the consequences. But even as I sit here writing this account, I can't bring myself to regret it. Claire deserved everything she got. She was a monster, and I was the one who finally stopped her. If you're reading this, take it as a warning. Betrayal cuts deeper than any knife, and revenge is a dangerous game. But sometimes when the world fails to deliver justice, you have to take matters into your own hands. Just be prepared for the cost.